welcome back to Red Cedar Radar. This week I have a special episode of our preview series here. I have a special guest, Justin Roh from Blue by 90. Welcome, Justin, back to the podcast for the second time. How are you?
I'm great. Recurring guest here. I don't know how I got the invite back, but it is that time of the year, right?
Right. It is my favorite time of year almost, but sometimes my favorite time of year.
Sometimes. Depends
Um,
on the year, right?
right, exactly. Past couple years, not too bad. Well, meh, sort of, but I want to talk first about who you are and kind of your work at Blue by 90, just to give the listeners kind of a background on what you do.
Yeah, so at Blue by 90, we're definitely similar to Spartans Illustrated, where, we cover all things Michigan athletics. I like to think about us as more of a casual coverage, right? We don't dive too deep into analysis or anything, but try to keep it lighthearted, entertaining, have some fun with it, do some memes, some good content, and all that stuff. So, I'm not sure how many of your listeners are going to want to head over there. But maybe come talk some crap to me. I'm down for that always as well. So, just come over and hang out with us for a bit.
I usually say that, all my guests, I have their information linked down in the description if people want to check out their stuff. It might be linked down in the description. I don't know how much that they're going to check it out, but I'll put it down there in case they want
Listen,
to.
hey, I understand. I understand for sure. I get enough Spartans that are in our mentions on every tweet that we put out. So, probably some of them have already come across our page. So, but I
I'm
no
sure.
no no hard feelings here.
So the reason that Justin and I are filming this podcast, and he's kind of been on a couple other podcasts with some Spartans Illustrated staff recently, is because Justin is representing or kind of brought forth kind of really cool opportunity for Spartans Illustrated with something called Rivals for a Cause. I'll be inserting links and kind of a description of the website and everything that you're talking about, but give a little background on what that is, how it came about, and kind of what Spartans Illustrated and Blue by 90 are doing together.
Yeah, I really appreciate your guys' participation in this. So I want to say that first. But Rivals for a Cause is something that I teamed up with North Peak Brewing Company, who they own Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor. They own Jolly Pumpkin and Mash in East Lansing. And they have two beers. One's a Hail IPA for Michigan, one's a Sparta IPA for Michigan State. And so it's actually funny. One of their brewers and the partners at North Peak, his name is Tony Grant. He first played football at Michigan, transferred from Michigan to Michigan State, and so he's got like a little bit of the both sides of it. He's now full-time Sparty for sure, and has a very disdained taste for Michigan. So him and I go at it. But what we're doing here is making the rivalry great for and actually for a good cause. I know there are have been a lot of people that have gone back and forth that Michigan State. There's a lot of hate, but we are raising funds for the Mott Children's Hospital, which is paired up with the Sparrow Hospital in East Lansing as well. And so all the funds from the contributions for Rivals for a Cause go straight to Mott Children's Hospital to help pediatric children that are in the care of the hospital for whatever reason it is, whether it's they're dealing with childhood cancer, whether they have an operation coming up. So Mott's is amazing. I'm sure that a lot of people in the whole state of Michigan have experienced the Michigan health systems, which are phenomenal. So we're teaming up together, two rivals that are coming together here to try and raise funds for people in need. And so this week only at Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor and at Jolly Pumpkin in East Lansing, if you go there and buy either a Hail IPA or a Sparta IPA, $1 for each beer is going towards Mott's. So we're you can go grab a drink, watch some football, and it all is going to a good cause.
So I will have links to donate down in the description of the episode. I just checked and the goal is 5,000. Right now we've already raised $1,610. So that's awesome. Talk a
Awesome.
little bit about the live event that you're having in Ann Arbor coming up. This podcast will probably be released on Thursday, so the Friday before MSU and Michigan play, you're having an event at Pretzel Bell, is that right?
That's right. So Pretzelville in Ann Arbor. So it's right downtown Main Street. We'll be outside on the corner. It looks like good weather. It's going to be in the 50s, which is great. Might have to bundle up a little bit. Yeah, cross your fingers for sure. Hey, I will take the weather right now in late October. I'll say that for sure. We had 80 on Monday, I think it was. So unfortunately, it won't be that warm, but we're going to have a live podcast. A bunch of the people from your team at Spartans Illustrated are coming down. We're going to do a dual podcast live outside on the patio of Pretzel Bell. We'll grab some beers ourselves. We'll have the Hale IPA, Sparty IPA available, and you can come whether you're wearing maize and blue or wearing green and white, coming to Ann Arbor for the game. Come hang out with us. We'll have some back and forth, give each other some crap for sure, and gear up for the game on Saturday. So it's a way to kick off the weekend for sure. Come join us. We'd really appreciate all the support.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few of us from Spartans Illustrated there. I think that's the plan. So I think it'll be a great event. And yeah, weather looks good. Weather looks decent for the game too. So I think good
For
all
sure.
around. Anything else
For
that you want to
sure.
say about Rivals for a Cause before we kind of jump into the usual preview episode?
Yeah, I think we hit most of it. The thing is, I think if you have the means, we always appreciate the support. Go to rivalsforacause.org. You can see, all the information about the campaign. This is something that Dave Harns from Spartans Illustrated and I just kind of kicked off our partnership on this year. But it's something that even already, during this week, him and I have talked like, hey, we want to do this as a year round thing, do this every year and build upon it. So this will just be the beginning of this, and I'm really excited to blow it up even more and raise as much funds as possible for this cause.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Um, and thank you for partnering with Spartans Illustrated. I would like to think that you picked Spartans Illustrated because you came on Red Cedar Radar a year ago and you had such a great
Hey,
time that you wanted to come back for more. So you don't have to respond to that either way, but I'm just going to say that that's why you picked us.
that's exactly right. You're exactly right for sure.
Okay, so let's jump into kind of breaking down Michigan before Michigan and Michigan State play on Saturday. So usually I do kind of offense players to watch, people that Michigan State fans should be looking for, and then kind of some positives and negatives on offense that you've seen from the team so far.
Not so many positives for Michigan's offense, unfortunately. If you'd have asked me a year ago, I would have had a lot to say in terms of positives. But this year, not so much. But I honestly think that the quarterback position has really been the main issue, right? I think that Michigan's on their third quarterback. It sounds like Jack Tuttle still will start, although they're going to see what happens throughout practice this week to see if Alex Orji or Davis Warren, who have both started for Michigan in previous games this year, if they jump off the page, I think, during this week. But if we're sitting here right now, I'd have to guess that Jack Tuttle will be the starting quarterback. Now, the issue with him and the issue with Michigan's offense has been turnovers, right? So they've moved the ball down the field, moved the ball, looked great at times, then all of a sudden they'll turn it over. I think that it's something that we both probably have seen. Aiden Childs has had his own issues as well, although he looked really good against Iowa last week and seems to be progressing. So that's what I'd look as a negative for Michigan is the turnover side of things. They had fumbles, two picks last week, so it wasn't great. And then and if you want to look at a positive though, the running game is still there. Michigan, I firmly believe they won a national title last year off of running the ball mostly. But that still is there. And although it's been tough at times, it still, has got to be the crutch that they, sit on where, all right, if they can get the run game going, I really do think that they have, a good chance in this game. If Michigan State's able to bottle up the run, then, I don't know. To be honest, it's going to be a tough time scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a couple of Michigan's games recently and I've been a little underwhelmed. I wasn't sure what to expect coming off the national championship. I don't follow their team as much with, guys that were lost and coaching changes. Of course, you expect a little bit of a kind of a reset, but I was pleasantly, I guess I should say, surprised that their offense wasn't turning out
They'll be
exactly.
so happy. Gosh, come on. Come on.
um, yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that just because coming off the national championship, you expect things to be different. What did you expect coming out of the national championship as you kind of started to see players and coaches kind of either find their new positions or like stay in place? What were your thoughts at that point?
Yeah, I definitely knew that there was going to be drop off. You lose Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers, which when you lose your head coach, that's obviously going to have a pretty big impact. And then you lost the entire defensive staff essentially. Jesse Minter was the D coordinator under Harbaugh here in Michigan. He followed him to L.A. Ben Herbert, who was the strength coach, followed him to L.A. Steve Klinkscale, defensive backs coach. So you're losing a lot of the staff, which that part stinks, right? That's going to make it tough. And then on the offensive side, in terms of player personnel, you lose pretty much the entire offense. You lose 5 or 6 offensive linemen. You lose Blake Corum. You lose J.J. McCarthy. You lose a lot of the receivers in Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson. You lose A.J. Barner at tight end. So it was going to be a transition. There was no doubt about that, right? But with a lot of the defense coming back, you have Kenneth Grant coming back on the D line, Mason Graham, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart. You have Will Johnson, who's going to be a top 5 pick. You have a ton of NFL talent on this defense, and so what our thought was coming off the national title was, okay, there's going to be a drop off for sure. We've got to figure out the quarterback situation, but our defense is going to win us games. My thought was the defense alone, because it was going to be obviously the staff is different, which is going to that's been the main contributor to their regression, I would say. But you really thought that this defense would carry this team to 9-3, 10-2, but that just hasn't been the case. So I think what people are realizing, Michigan fans are realizing, is like, yeah, it's tough to just replace a Jim Harbaugh and replace a JJ McCarthy and a Blake Corum and even a Mikey Sainer still on the backside. And so I think that people thought that things would just keep rolling, but it hasn't been the case.
Do you think like with the way recruiting goes now, like it's so hard to, well, maybe not. I don't know what I'm trying to ask here. Do you think the way with recruiting is do you think with the way recruiting is now that it's so hard to keep a team built up year after year because so many things are changing? Like when guys find out that the staff at Michigan is going to change, that changes things for them and their recruiting. Do you think that we'll see more of this as staffs turn over, that players just don't stay because they have the option to go somewhere else where things are more established? I feel like that probably plays a part of it.
Yeah, I think I see it both ways. So sometimes when a new staff comes along, aka Jonathan Smith, he can
Yeah.
build up, right? And he can say, all right, I'm bringing Aiden Childs with me. I'm bringing, a number of guys with me from Oregon State. And you can fill up a roster really easily. Before the transfer portal era, it was tough, right? You had to wait 2, 3 years to get your recruits in there, build things up. Now you can turn over a roster like that. But to your point, if things don't go well, or if you lose the coach, that was the guy, right, and Jim Harbaugh, and even though everyone loves Sharon Moore, he was great for us as an offensive coordinator last year. It's still different, right? He's not Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh is, one of the best coaches in all of college football. Now doing really well in the NFL for the Chargers. So I think you're definitely right, where it is tough for just to keep continuity, right, of a program to, all of a sudden if guys, if a coach is coming out here and if they're making a transition, immediately guys are looking to transfer. So that part is tough. And then from a recruiting aspect, from high school recruits, yeah, it's definitely hard. There were a lot of guys that were in the mix for Michigan because of Jim Harbaugh. And when Jim Harbaugh leaves, it's like, okay, well, they're going to start looking at their other options. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I do see it both ways, but I definitely agree with you. It does make it more difficult.
Yeah, just new pieces in that whole recruiting game. You touched on defense a little bit. Anything else that you want to talk about, positives and negatives on defense, just a little more in depth?
Yeah, for sure. I think that Michigan's rush defense is definitely the strength. So I think that Michigan's defensive line, you have two guys that are probably going in the top 10 in Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. So they're going to be the top 10 of the NFL draft next year. They're very good. Josiah Stewart is working himself into the first round. Derek Moore is also probably going to be in the NFL next year. So you got NFL talent all across the front line. You need to be able to stop the run if you're Michigan. If you can do that, I think that changes things, and you got to force Aiden Childs to beat you throwing the football. The other thing with that too is I think if you're a Michigan fan, you're hoping that you can get to Aiden Childs, you can get to the quarterback, right? And so they're going to want to blitz. They're going to want the edge rushers getting there. With him being so young, he's been turnover prone, had made some mistakes. I definitely think that the goal for Michigan's defensive line is going to be let's get to him, get him on his heels. The crowd will be into it, right? This will be one of his first big starts in this in college football, but let alone in this rivalry, obviously. And so I think that that's going to be the goal. Now, Michigan's secondary, even though there's NFL talent back there as well, that's been where this defense has struggled. And so if Aiden Childs is able to sit back there and throw the football, to Nick Marsh and a bunch of those other wide receivers, that's where I think Michigan State's offense can really take a toll on Michigan's defense.
I think this is going to be a really telling game for Aiden Childs to see, like, has he truly developed over this year, or was Iowa just kind of a good day for him? Like, can he truly perform at Michigan? You know, we'll see. I'll be curious to watch that just because he's been so up and down. So, yeah, those are some good points and some things I was kind of thinking about already for him.
Yeah, I
Mm,
definitely agree with that.
yeah. Do you have an opinion on truly how MSU compares to Michigan and kind of how this game will shake out?
I do. I think if you're comparing just like personnel and the players, if you went on, just judging by on paper, Michigan, if I'm being honest, is more talented pretty much all across the board, except for I would say I would take Aiden Childs, I would take Nick Marsh on the offensive side of the ball. There are a couple other guys, but for the most part, if you're looking on paper, Michigan is more talented. I think right now, Michigan has probably five, six, seven guys that are going to be in the NFL next year. I don't know that MSU has a for sure guy, NFL type guy on their roster currently, right? So that from a talent perspective, Michigan has it. But obviously, there are a lot of other. You can't just go off of paper, right? And MSU has looked like they're making progress week after week, right? Whereas Michigan has honestly regressed. They have taken steps backwards. They're on their third quarterback. They've made a bunch of mistakes. They have turnovers. They have penalties. Very uncharacteristic things of a Michigan football program, especially when it was under Jim Harbaugh. So Sharon Moore has to figure that part out of it where, yes, you have the talent, you have all the pieces for this to be a good team. You have to be able to put it together. So I'm not saying Michigan State, they've made their fair share of mistakes as well. But it seems like they're cleaning those things up week after week. So I think what I'm looking for in this matchup is can Michigan put it all together for at least 1 week and say, hey, they've shown great things at times. They've shown that they can move the football. They've shown that they can play great defense. Can they do it all together? And then for Michigan State, is it how far along really are you in this progression under Jonathan Smith? I think it's going to be really telling of, hey, are they, like you said, is Aiden Childs, did they have one good game against Iowa, or are they really making strides? And then the other thing I think I'm looking for in this game is just who wants it more, right? I know that Michigan State wants it because this is something that could really, like, for Jonathan Smith, this could put his trajectory, beelining to the top if he beats Michigan. And for Michigan, it's, hey, we've already got our national title. Do you really want to come back and win these? Do you not care because you're going to be in the NFL very soon? Or for Sharon Moore, is it, hey, I'm coaching for my job already in week 8, 9, whatever we're in, and he needs it badly. So I think from a grit standpoint, from a want it standpoint, it'll be interesting to see, what the deal is there for each team.
Do you think it will matter that it's at Michigan versus it being at Michigan State for Jonathan Smith's first time in this rivalry? Do you have any opinion on that?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you have any opinion on it being at Michigan versus at Michigan State for Jonathan Smith's, well, I guess, and Michigan too, with your new coach? Do you think that home field advantage matters in this situation in a rivalry
I
game?
definitely do. I think if you're Sherelle Moore, you're very happy that you're playing at home. If you're a 4-3 football team that Michigan is, you've lost 2 in a row, you're really struggling, and you're saying, all right, hey, you then have to go to East Lansing and hear everything where Michigan State's coming off of a big win. Obviously, after a 49-0 game last year, Michigan State's going to want to make a statement here, right? So I think for Michigan, you're pretty happy that this game is in Ann Arbor. The other side of it, though, is Michigan fans are pretty restless right now. You last year, or we've already lost the same amount of games this season than we did in the last 3 seasons combined. Right? Michigan was 40-3 in the last 3 seasons. They're now 4-3. So Michigan fans are going to be pretty restless, and if things don't, if they aren't going well in the first half, I hope this doesn't happen, but you could hear some boo birds coming out, and people are going to, need Michigan to move the ball and score. And so, although I still think you'd rather have it in Ann Arbor, it's an interesting dynamic right now for both head coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a specific score prediction?
That's a tough one. I've been joking with my friends a little bit. I think this might be the ugliest football game of all time. Both teams probably will turn the ball over a handful of times. Both teams are going to struggle on offense at times. I think too. So I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be ugly. It reminds me of, like, even though it's supposed to not rain, it reminds me of a rain game. Like, that's just like, it's going to be ugly and you're going to have to run the ball and figure it out. That's what it reminds me of. So I'm going to say, it's tough right now. I feel like there's no reason for me to predict Michigan to win, but I feel like they somehow pull it out in this game. I think it's going to be something like 14-10 Michigan.
Yeah, I expect messy. Just like turnovers, times that I'm yelling at the TV, like, oh my God, what are
Oh,
you
for
doing? And
sure.
other times I'm like, oh my God, what are they doing? So I just think that it's going to be crazy to watch. And like you said, that calling it a rain game without rain is like the perfect description because I think it would just be messy that way. Yeah. And I think you have to in a rivalry game, even though we both, cover sports and we have like a maybe more of a analytical mind about it, you have to pick your own team when you're making score
Obviously,
predictions
obviously.
in a
I don't.
rivalry. So
I,
if you would have picked Michigan State, I would have loved it. First of all, I would have loved it, but I would have been like kind of looking at you side eye a little bit in that outfit, and then picking Michigan State, it would have been wrong. So I
yeah,
respect it.
listen, I will be a homer still. That's what I started off with a little bit about us. Hey, I'll dive into analytics every so often. I'll give you, some stuff, but there's always going to be some bias because I'm wearing this get up, right? So,
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that kind of covers a good breakdown of and preview of the game. Anything else that you want to say about the matchup on Saturday at all?
I think this is interesting because I think that, you have when was the last time in this rivalry you had two head coaches? What both coaches are new
Yeah.
coaches, right? I honestly can't remember when that was, and so it's an interesting time where both teams are trying to build, right? It's the first time that neither team hasn't been ranked. I think since 1989, I want to say was what Dr. Green and White said on the podcast last night. So I think that was it. So it's a unique situation right now where both teams have a lot to prove. It's more of, I would say, a can't lose game for Michigan. If Michigan goes to 4-4 and Jerome Moore loses his first game to MSU, I think that's going to be, it's not going to sit well with Michigan fans. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, Jonathan Smith is looking at this as an opportunity. Like, hey, we can, if we win this, it was the same thing with D'Antonio. He put all the emphasis on beating Michigan, and that's where it started. And it feels like that's probably what they're trying to do right now. And from what I know, I have a ton of Michigan State friends. They could go 1-11, but if that win is against Michigan, they're happy about how the season panned out. So I think that that's going to be, how this fan base is thinking about this game right now.
My biggest takeaway from this game is that these two teams are a lot more alike than I expected them to be based off Michigan winning the national championship. So I'm excited to see, like we talked about, just who can kind of come away with it in whatever kind of crazy fashion that it happens, because I think it will be something that nobody can really predict throughout the game. So I think that kind of concludes our preview section of the episode. If you have time, Justin, I want to play a little game with you. So, we've come together for Rivals by a Cause to kind of work together for something really great. Another thing that I think we can come together for is maybe poking fun at a few other of the Big Ten coaches. So, a game that I like to play, and I played on the podcast before, but my friends and I play it all the time. We pick coaches from other schools and we just look at their, stock photo image and we talk about what job we think that they would have if they weren't coaching football. So, do you have a particular Big Ten coach that's not Michigan State or Michigan's coach that you like?
That I like.
That you
Good
actually like.
question. Let's go Matt Rule from Nebraska. I like what he's doing at Nebraska. I think he's going about it the right way. And they're building
Okay, yeah.
something. I know that they got their butts whooped by Indiana last week, which I like the Indiana coach too. But Matt Rule, I think,
Yeah,
is a good one.
absolutely. Okay, so that's so funny that you picked him because I think that Matt Rule looks a lot like David Harns from Spartans Illustrated. That's something I've
That's
thought for
so
a really
good.
long time, and I hope if David listens to this, he gets a kick out of that. But if you had to choose a different job for Matt Rule, what would you choose?
Oh man, I'm looking through photos right now. I
Mhm.
think it's well now this is like going to be a diss on Dave Harns too, so I got to be careful with what I say.
Right, right, right.
But some of these I could see like just like truck driver, just a blue collar guy that does like which is probably perfect for Nebraska, right? They don't need
Yeah.
anything fancy.
Mhm.
But a guy that like crushes beers on a Friday night and at a barn party.
Yeah.
That's what the vibe I get.
There's a picture that I'm looking at of him at right now that he has like a cut off sweatshirt on. And yeah, I think
Yep.
that's perfect. That's so funny. Okay, let's pick one more.
Uh,
Tell me a coach that's not Jonathan Smith that you don't like that's in the Big Ten.
that I don't like that's in the Big Ten.
Or maybe not
Well,
Rondo.
yeah, no, that's. I mean, obviously we could go Ryan Day, but I'm gonna go more unique than that.
Okay.
And the guy that just beat us, Brett Bielema,
Okay.
because he's shown some. He hasn't shown us much love. He hates Michigan, so I've got to give him some crap here.
We've talked about him on the podcast before, so I'm curious to see, before I say anything, what you think his job would be if he wasn't a head football coach.
I mean, this one is tough. Obviously, he's a bigger fella.
Yeah.
So you know, I think there are a couple funny photos. One, he's got a shirtless photo out
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
I feel like he's like a fry cook, like a cook in the back that's like, got the big belly. He maybe samples a little too much of his own food at times. So that's the vibe I'm getting.
We talked about how he always has, like, a quarter zip, and it's always, like, zipped all the way up, like, right under his chin, and for some
Yeah.
reason, like, that reminded us of, like this isn't a job, this is just a, I don't know, general personality trait, I guess, of, like, a dad that would yell on the sidelines of his kids' sporting events too much, and he'd
Yes.
have
Oh
their
my
their
gosh.
team zip up, like, all the way up here, and he'd be screaming at his daughter to kick the ball harder, and I
Yes.
just get that vibe from him, I don't know why.
For sure. It's like a 3rd grade, like, team, right? So, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
matter at all, but he's just freaking out and then has to,
Mhm.
like, storm off to the, go cool off in the
Mhm.
parking lot or something like
Yeah,
that.
yep, his wife sends him to the car to take a breather, yeah, mhm.
That's good.
Okay, so since you mentioned Ryan Day, let's make fun of Ryan Day just for a second. Do
Okay.
you think
Twist my
that
arm here.
he yeah, right. Do you think that he uses touch of gray on his beard? It's way too
It
dark all the time.
It's not even touch of gray, it's like touch of the black hole. It's like unbelievable. It's like I don't know what even shade it is. It's so
Yeah,
dark. Like
yeah.
it's one of those things where like how people either like they get new fake teeth and they're way too white or something like
Yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
or like
Mhm.
it's like that's the situation that we're dealing with for Ryan Day right
Yes, we are, you're right. Okay, a job for him if he wasn't a coach. He'll be our last one.
now. A job for him. I feel like I don't know, there's something with the rosy cheeks. Like I feel like
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
something in the cold, either like super hot in the cold or in the sun.
Mm,
Like he might be um like an umpire or something that's just always
mm.
it's just out in the sun just all day long. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at one here. I know umpires don't really have a whistle, but he's got the whistle in his mouth and the rosy cheeks, and I'm just looking at him like he could be the guy that's like just been out in the sun way too long, and now he's permanently red forever.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That I
What
think
do you?
that's
Th- what
great.
is? What's your thought?
So when you start talking about someone that's outside all the time, like, he looks like a guy that owns, like, a landscaping company, and so he's, like, constantly yelling at the guys to, like, get those mowers out there and get moving, like
Yes,
and
I like
he
it.
did landscaping for a long time, so he has, like, permanent tan lines and
Yep,
rosy
yep.
cheeks, and I don't know.
He could be like the guy too that like he takes his hat off and it's like just the like right across the forehead is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
is the tan line.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that was really fun. Thanks for playing along. I like that game.
Of course.
Anything else that you want to share about Rivals for a Cause or the game against Michigan State at all before we wrap up the episode?
Hey, no, I appreciate everybody. If you can, if you have the means, you can go to rivalsforacause.org. We really appreciate all the help there. So thank you all for that. And yeah, I mean, listen, I'm hoping that you're sad. Sorry to you, but I'm hoping you're very sad on Saturday night. I'm hoping I'm very happy on Saturday night.
Mm.
I'll be at the game. I hope everyone comes out to Pretzel Ball on Friday night too. If you're a Sparty, you can come give me some shit. I'm fine with that, right? Like, feel free to come talk crap to me. I might even buy you a beer. You never know. So
Sounds like a great deal.
that's
Thanks
a
so
good
much
deal,
for
right?
coming on. Yeah, I know. It sounds great. Everyone show up to Pretzelville. Justin's buying. That's what I heard.
uh,
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and partnering with Spartans Illustrated. I think it's been really fun to kind of put this all together and um, check out Spartans Illustrated for some more content as we lead up to this rivalry game. And consider subscribing to Red Cedar Radar wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much and bye.